going to discuss about how we are going to deploy thematic analysis on the data collected by semi-structured interviews. So it's a very easy technique, the thematic analysis. So what we are going to discuss today is how we are going to use thematic analysis on semi-structured interviews. So let me explain you what are the areas that we'll be covering today. So first we'll start with understanding what is thematic analysis. So I'll be giving you a definition of thematic analysis and the situations where you can use thematic analysis and the advantages and disadvantages of thematic analysis in this first point. And then we are going to discuss about the steps in thematic analysis. And after that, the important part begins that we are going to take a practical example and we are going to learn how to do this thematic analysis step by step. So the third point is the step-by-step approach. Though you can do thematic analysis entirely manually, at the very end, I will be just briefing you some useful software if you really want to make help of the software application to do your thematic analysis. So this is what we are going to cover in today's session. Okay, let's first move on to what is thematic analysis. So what do you understand by thematic analysis? What it is? So thematic analysis is a method of analyzing qualitative data to identify and present recurring patterns and or themes within your data set. So it's a method of analyzing qualitative data, and you're trying to identify the recurring patterns or themes within the data. You mainly use this thematic analysis in social sciences to analyze data collected via interviews, open-ended survey responses, or social media posts. And there are many definitions for thematic analysis out there in the literature, but here I have taken the definition by Brown and Clark 2006. The purpose is the steps that we are going to discuss today are the steps that were introduced by Brown and Clark. So according to Brown and Clark, thematic analysis is a flexible qualitative research method for identifying, analyzing, and reporting patterns or themes within data, emphasizing the researcher's subjectivity and providing a practical step-by-step approach. So with that, let's see when to use this thematic analysis. What are the situations where you can use this thematic analysis? So if you're working with large amounts of qualitative data, you can use thematic analysis. If you're using large amounts of qualitative data, you can go for thematic analysis. And also, if you want to divide and categorize huge quantities of data in a way that makes it easy to understand, you need to categorize and divide large data into pieces so that it is easy for you to understand. In that case, you can use thematic analysis. And also, if your research focuses on subjective information, not objective information, but if it is focuses on subjective information such as experiences and opinions in interviews, surveys, conversations, or social media posts, again, you can go for this thematic analysis. And also, when you want to find patterns across different perspectives, say you have collected data from multiple individuals and you need to identify the common patterns within these perspectives, you can also use thematic analysis. So I hope now you have a general understanding of what is thematic analysis and when to use thematic analysis. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes, doctor.
Right.
Clear.
Right. So with that, now we can move on to advantages and disadvantages of thematic analysis. So let's move on to advantages first. With thematic analysis, you can gain in-depth understanding of your dataset. Unlike in coding, instead of just listing everything that everyone has said, with thematic analysis, it helps you to find the main points or common facts in what people are saying. So if it helps you to understand the bigger picture, you can understand your dataset in deep. And it is a very flexible approach, though it has a set of steps to be followed. Within each step, you can have your own initiative. When we do the examples, you'll understand this flexibility of thematic analysis. So it is adaptable to various research questions and data type. It's a very flexible method to be used. And it is very easy to learn and conduct. It doesn't require any advanced statistical knowledge. That's the beauty of that, as well as it doesn't need any specific technical knowledge. So if you're not technically sound, still you can use thematic analysis manually without using any of the softwares. And if you don't know much about statistics, still you can use thematic analysis and you can analyze your data. So it's a very easy to learn and to conduct. So with that, let's see some of the disadvantages of thematic analysis. The main disadvantage of thematic analysis is its subjectivity and biasness. Thematic analysis involves interpretation and subjective judgments, which can influence biasness in your analysis. So when you're defining your themes, you can have your own definition for theme within your context. So it can be researcher biased. You may define based on your perception. So because every one of us see the world in our viewpoints. So similarly, when you're defining your theme, you might define with your own perception, within your own perception. So it is this subjectivity can lead to biasness. And it is also time consuming because in thematic analysis, there are a lot of iterations involved. So it can be time consuming because like once you go to one step, once you're done with initial themes, you can again go back and revise your theme. So same thing you'll be doing again and again. So it will involved in lot of iterations. Therefore, it can be time consuming. And the complexity is another disadvantage. It can be complex because you're dealing with large amounts of data sets. Right. So with that, we can now move on to steps in thematic analysis. Here I'll be talking about the Brown and Clark's 6 stages of thematic analysis. So there are many approaches. Out of those, I have selected this Brown and Clark 6 stages of thematic analysis. So it starts with familiarize, generate codes, search for themes, review themes, define themes, and the write-up. So before moving into step-by-step approach with the example, let's discuss these 6 stages in detail. Let's try to understand what you are going to do in these 6 stages. So familiarize, where you gain a deeper understanding of the contents of your data set. And step 2 is you're going to generate codes, where you label segments of data that are relevant to the research question. So you're going to identify the data segments that are relevant to your research question, and you're going to label them in this generate codes. And search for themes, where you're going to group similar codes into broader overreaching themes. 4 is to review themes, refine the themes by examining their relationship to each other. Step number 5 is you're going to define your theme, where you're going to clearly describe what this theme is all about. And finally is the write-up, where you're going to present your findings to the audience. So those are the 6 main steps that we are going to discuss. And in the next few slides, I'm going to discuss these 6 steps with an example so that it will be very clear for you, and we are completing with the final write-up. Right. So with that, let's move on to step-by-step approach. Right. So our first step is familiarize. Now, before you go for this step, before you familiarize with your data set, there is one pre-task that you have to do. You have to organize and store your interview data. You need to make your interview transcripts. So when do you think you need to create or finalize, or you need to organize and store your interview data? So if you're going to interview 20 individuals, are you going to create your interview transcripts after conducting all 20 interviews? No. Right. So if you have taken manual notes during the interview, so when the person is responding, you are just taking down the short notes of what the person has said. Immediately after the interview, you have to complete your interview transcript. Otherwise, you will forget what the person has said. If you have waited for 1 or 2 weeks until you finished all the interviews, and by that time, if you try to create your transcript, you might lose some information. What you have taken, the short notes, you might forget. So immediately after, if you have taken the manual notes, immediately after you're done with your interview, you have to complete your interview transcripts. And if possible, sometimes they may provide, sometimes they may not. If possible, you can get the final sign off from the respondent. And if you have recorded your interview, then you need to transcribe the audio or the video. So this you can do either by manually or by using a software like Nota, Otter AI, or Sonics. So transcribe means if you're doing it manually, it's very easy. You listen your recording word by word, you write down in a piece of paper or in a Word document. So soon after you're done with your interview, you have to prepare your interview transcript so you can make sure without forgetting any of the points, you have included everything in your transcript. So once you have all your transcripts in hand, now you can move on to this familiarization step. So here what we do is we read and reread the transcript. In the next slide, I'll show you an example transcript. So you read and reread the transcripts to become familiar with them. You again and again read the transcript which you have created to familiarize yourself with the transcript. So this is a sample transcript from my own research. So it has the transcript number, transcript 1. This is the transcript of my first interview. So the respondent number, respondent 1. We have not revealed the respondent's details here, But in a separate document, you can have respondent number, the respondent's number and the respondent's name, the designation, all the details about the respondents you can have in a separate document. In the transcript, you don't need to have all these information. And here in our research, we have conducted interviews with three categories of experts: IT specialists, educational psychologists, and educational specialists. So this interview is done with an IT specialist. So that's why this category is mentioned here. And the date which the interview was conducted in is 5th of May, 2023. So like that, you can have a brief information about your transcript and what the respondent has said. And when you're trying to familiarize with this data, always you have to keep in mind your research question. Keeping your research question in mind, you have to read these transcripts. So in our case, our research question is, what are the factors to be considered when selecting a web conferencing tool for online tertiary education in Sri Lanka? So when you're reading this, you have to always remember this research question and you try to find whether there are relevant answers for this research question in this transcript. Right. So once you're done with the familiarization, once you familiarize with your data set, next is you're going to generate the codes. You're going to generate the codes. So what is a code? Code is a label. It's just a simply a label that describes a piece of content. Just you're simply labeling the chunks of text to get the meaning of those. So coding is a process of creating and assigning codes to categorize the data extract. So the coding is a process of creating and assigning codes to categorize data extracts from your interview transcript. Purpose is to organize the data and to lay the foundation for your analysis. So with that purpose, we are generating the codes. So before moving into the example of coding, let's see what are the types of approaches that you can use in coding. Mainly, there are three types of approaches. One is the deductive approach. Next is the inductive approach. And finally, you have the hybrid approach. Let's see what are these approaches. So deductive approach is, as a researcher, you begin with a set of pre-established codes and apply them to your data set. Now, when you're doing a research, you do a lot of background search and you review existing literature. And with this, you get an understanding of what you really need. So you have a predefined set, established set of codes, and with your collected data, you're trying to find whether these codes are revealed by your respondents. So that is the deductive approach. You're searching some predefined or pre-established codes in the collected data. Inductive approach is the reverse order. So it works in the reverse, as you start with a blank canvas and create your set of codes based on the data itself. So you don't have any pre-established set of codes, but you're trying to find the codes within the data. So codes emerge from your data in the inductive approach. Hybrid approach is a combination or a mix of these two approaches. So this hybrid approach is the approach that we used in our research, where it's a mix of both deductive and inductive approach, where you start with a set of known codes, deductive, and then add new codes based on the data collected in the hybrid approach. So if I tell you my own experience, so from the literature, we have identified 8 key characteristics as of important factors for a web conferencing tool for educational purposes. So once we collected data, we tried to find whether the experts in the Sri Lankan context also has revealed these key characteristics. So having the deductive approach, try to search the pre-established codes in the data set. Meanwhile, are there any new things, unique features relevant to the Sri Lankan context? So that is an inductive approach. So we had initial 8 key characteristics which we have found from the literature, and from the data that we have collected from the experts in the Sri Lankan context, we have identified 5 more key characteristics that are unique to be considered in the Sri Lankan context. So we have gone to the hybrid approach, which is a combination of both deductive and inductive approach. So I hope you are now clear about up to this point, are you?
Yes, doctor.
Okay. Right. Now with that, we can go to the example of coding. Right. To my easiness of reading, I have broken down this my interview transcript into 3 paragraphs. And when coding also, the most important thing that you have to keep in mind is your research question. What are the factors to be considered when selecting a web conferencing tool for online tertiary education in Sri Lanka? So we are trying to find the factors, considerable factors for a web conferencing tool. So keep this in mind. You're going to label the chunks of text in this interview transcript. So let's read this together and try to find, are there any important factors? And if we identify an important factor, we are going to label it. So that's what the coding is all about. It's a very simple technique. You just go through your transcript. Whenever you find an answer for your research question, you label that. Right. High quality audio is important for a web conferencing tool. Students must be able to clearly hear the instructor. What are the factors to be considered? High quality audio is important for web conferencing tool. Did you find any factor there? Any key point in that chunk of text? Yes. So I label this audio quality. So this respondent has talked about audio quality. So while reading your transcript, you're going to give labels to the chunk of text that are relevant to your research question. Similarly, video and image clarity. Oh, video quality is also important. So you give another label to that. Image quality is also important. You give another label for that. Right. I also believe this is what somebody has told. So I also believe that users should have control over bandwidth usage. The tool should offer selectable bandwidth levels. A lower bandwidth setting would reduce the quality of the contents, but it would result in faster content retrieval. Is there any important point? Factors to be considered. Yes, you have to consider about the bandwidth levels. So you can give another label for that. Effectively, a lower data rate translate quicker loading time. So quicker loading times is important. What resulted this? The lower data rate. So you can give another label for that. So while you're reading your transcript, keeping your research question in mind, if you find answers for your research question, those piece of text you give, simply label them. Right. Also, the tool should be able to work on different web browsers and should be able to run on different operating systems. Another factor, the tool should be able to run on different web browsers, work on different web browsers, and able to run on different operating systems. What I mean is, you can't say if you want to use this tool, you have to have a particular operating system. Instead, the tool should be able to run on whatever the operating system runs on, whatever the hardware device used by the customer. So this tool, important consideration, whether the tool can be run on different web. The tool can be run on different operating systems or different hardware platforms. So you can give the labels to data extracts. So you extract data that are relevant to your research question and you label them. So this is what you basically do in coding. It's not a difficult task if you are clear with your research question. So you have to be very clear of what you need to find, and keeping that in mind, you are going to label the data extracts. So this is what you do in coding. I hope you're clear with coding. Right. So with that, we can now move on to search for themes. So themes are the main characters in your data set. A theme is about what the data mean, and themes are more than label. You focus the bigger picture. You transform individual codes to broader themes in coding. We derive themes by looking for similarities, connections, and patterns within your codes. So before moving into the example of searching for themes or generating themes, let's see what is the difference between coding and generating themes. So in coding, what we do, you don't like hardly working on your brain when coding. You just read the text, and while you're reading, if you find an answer for your research question, you simply label it. So what we do in coding, you're breaking data into smaller, meaningful chunks. We identify specific pieces of content and assigning labels to them. Purpose is to organize the data and lay the foundation for analysis. When generating themes, what do? You shift the focus from individual codes to broader patterns or themes. You're zooming out. You're looking for similarities. You're looking for connections and patterns between the codes. You're synthesizing the coded data. So you're looking for the big picture. You are trying to find the patterns and connections and similarities of the codes. You have to more work on your brain when you're doing the generating themes. So purpose of to identify the themes or deeper meanings within the codes that you have identified. Right. Let's go for the example of searching for themes. Audio quality, video quality, image quality. Now, as I said, this is a very flexible approach. Though you have to follow the 6 steps, within each step, you can have your own initiative. So it should not be ideally the way that I have done. The name of the theme that I have given should not be the name of the theme that you're giving in your study, right? So this is totally, that's the disadvantage that we have talked about. It is researcher biased. It's subjective to the perception of the researcher. That is a disadvantage as we discussed. Right. So audio quality, video quality, and image quality, we can put into one theme: audio, video, audio, and image quality. Bandwidth level and data rate. Both related to what? Both related to the speed of the web conferencing tool. So these two, I thought of combining together and have a single theme as the speed. Work on different web browsers, should run on different operating systems, run on different hardware platforms. What does this mean? You have to think. Work on different web browsers, run on different operating systems, run on different hardware platforms. Simply this means the tool should be compatible for different web browsers, different operating systems, and different hardware platforms. So I thought of giving this theme for these 3 labels: compatibility of the web conferencing tool. So it should provide high quality video, audio, and images. It should be fast, quickly responsive, and it should be compatible. So that piece of transcript, these are the themes that I initially have identified. Right. So with that, now we can move on to our next step, or the 4th step, where you are going to review your themes. You are going to review your themes. So this is something like quality control. You're reviewing your themes, where we review and refine the themes. So this might involve splitting one theme up to separate themes, or merging some themes, or might discard some themes. So you deeply study your themes and then you try to find out, do you really need to separate them, or do you need to merge this, or this doesn't make any sense and so I need to discard this theme. So that's what you're doing in review theme. So this is something like quality control. So once you're done with your initial themes, you're now going to review the themes that you have initially generated. So you take all your themes and you check whether there are similarities between them, whether you can divide them or simply discard them. Right. So let's take audio, video, image quality, speed. Is there a relationship between these two? You have to think. If the bandwidth levels are high, you can give the audio, video quality increases. If the data rate is high, the quality of the audio, video, and image is high quality. So if the bandwidth levels are low, you get low quality audio, video, and images. So I think there is a relationship between these two themes. So this all talks about the performance of your web conferencing tool. So rather than having 2 separate themes, from these two, I will derive one theme as performance. So when you're selecting a web conferencing tool for online tertiary education in Sri Lanka, one important factor to be considered is the performance. So when you're talking about the performance, you have to consider the video quality, audio quality, image quality, the level of bandwidth, the data rate. Those are the sub-factors. So from these two, now we review and we refined it to one theme, performance. Let's go to this. Compatibility and performance, if there are a relationship between this. Compatibility means it should be compatible with different web browsers, different operating systems, different hardware. So there's nothing related with the speed or the performance or the quality of. So this can be kept. I can't join compatibility with these two. Can I break down this compatibility? No. So I keep that theme as it is. So after the refining the themes, I have now two main themes, performance and compatibility. Right. Now we can move on to defining themes. Now you're going to explain this theme to an external audience. You're simply trying to describe this theme in your context. Here we basically explain what this theme is or what it is all about. So simply, it is a brief description of the theme that captures its sense. So what it is meaning. What do you mean by this theme? So when defining the theme, you give the title of the theme and you provide a brief description about it. So this doesn't need to be too lengthy. It can be one or two sentences. In one or two sentences, you give the theme name, and in one or two sentences, you explain what it is. So this will be a good exercise for us to confirm to ourselves that this theme is meaningful. This makes us think again, does this make sense? If you cannot give a clear definition for the theme that you have derived, you can always go backward and continue with the steps. So that's why I said initially, this process takes time. So it involves a lot of iterations. So when you come to this point, if you cannot define a theme properly, which can be understandable by an external audience, or if you don't have any idea about this theme to explain about it, you can always go backward and you can continue the steps. So that's why we say that this process takes time. It involved with a lot of iterations. So if you're unable to clearly define the theme, you can always go back and revise your themes. Right. So we have defined our two themes. Performance, you have the title or the name of the theme, and at the bottom you give a short description about your theme. So performance in the context of Sri Lankan tertiary education, performance of a web conferencing tool means the ability of the tool to execute its intended task within the given constraints. And when defining, you can have your own definition. So that's the flexibility of this approach. You can have your own definition. Compatibility of a web conferencing tool means the tool's adaptability to perform its task well on different hardware configurations and different software platforms. Is the compatibility. Are you all okay up to this point? Yeah, I hope you all can hear me. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes,
Right.
doctor.
Right. So we are moving on to our final step, write up. So as I said, you can have your own write-up. There is no any standard format for the write-up, but there are certain main things that your write-up should include. So this is all about writing up your analysis. So at this stage, you document your study. So you provide a detailed description of each theme, and you provide illustrative quotes from your data, and you can also discuss the broader implications of findings. There is no any specific standard for you to follow. So I'll show you two examples of write-ups. So if you have something else, you can use that format, but there are certain important factors to be included in your write-up. Format can be changed from person to person. So this final write-up you provide in your specific context or in your specific discipline. So it can be different from research to research. The way you provide your write-up and the can be changed from research to research. Right, so this is my example one. You have the title, Factors to Consider When Selecting a Web Conferencing Tool for Online Tertiary Education in Sri Lanka. We are going to present the results of our thematic analysis. So results of the thematic analysis. And then you need to give a brief introduction. This brief introduction should include what is the context you did your research, what is the approach that you have used to do this thematic analysis. So let's see this. So this write-up presents the findings of thematic analysis, exploring the key factors to consider when selecting a web conferencing tool for online tertiary education in Sri Lanka. Drawing upon the insights of educational psychologists, educational specialists, and IT specialists within the Sri Lankan tertiary educational setting. The analysis was done following Brown and Clark's 2006 six-phase approach. So this introduction is very brief, but it is very comprehensive. So it tells the audience, we have done this study in the context of Sri Lankan tertiary education, and we have collected data from three categories of experts. And who are they? The educational psychologists, educational specialists, and IT specialists. And the approach that we have used to do our thematic analysis is the Brown and Clark's 2006 six-phase approach. It's very brief, but it's very comprehensive. So when you're providing your introduction, it can be a brief one, but it should be a comprehensive one. It should include all the relevant information, in which context, from whom you have collected the data, and what is the approach that you have used to do your thematic analysis. Right. Now we are going to describe our themes. So for this also, we can have a small summary. The analysis yielded 13 central themes that emerged as critical considerations for selecting a web conferencing tool. So it says, okay, hereafter, we are going to explain 13 central themes. Now we are going to start explaining the themes. So when you're writing the themes, you have to have the theme number and the name of the theme. So our first theme, theme number 1, which is performance. So you give the theme number and the name of the theme. And then you can give a small introduction about this theme. So this introduction can include the context, the definition, and a brief explanation of what this theme is. Let's see this. In the context of online tertiary education in Sri Lanka, the theme performance refers, so we have talked about the context, and refers, we are going to give the definition, to the ability of the tool to execute well its intended task within the given constraints. And now we are moving into the explanation so that anybody can understand what it is. So this can be further elaborated as the tool's ability to deliver stable audio, video, and image quality, even with limited bandwidth and varying internet connections. So you give the theme number, you give the name of the theme, and you provide a brief introduction about the theme. This is how you do your write-up. And then you need to provide some evidence from the data that you have collected to support your theme. Evidence from the data. Experts across all three categories emphasizes the critical need for the performance of the web conferencing tool. So we have, as I said earlier, we have considered three categories of experts. So all these three categories have supported for this theme. And now we are going to tell who said what in relation to performance. All three categories of experts suggested the importance of reliable audio and video quality for effective online teaching and learning. So audio quality and video quality has been suggested by all three expert categories. And other than that, educational psychologists highlighted that lagging audio and video can lead to frustration, distraction, and ultimately decreased participation in online learning activities. So we are talking about what the educational psychologist has said. Meanwhile, IT specialists stressed the importance of selecting a tool that can function effectively within the variable internet connectivity in the setting of Sri Lanka, considering factors like bandwidth limitations and potential disruptions. Furthermore, educational specialists, now we are moving into educational specialists, emphasized the critical importance of image quality. They noted that clear and crisp visuals are essential for effective content delivery, especially when sharing presentations, diagrams, or demonstrations. Poor image quality can hinder comprehension and negatively impact on the overall learning experience. So you give a brief introduction about your theme and you provided some evidence from the data that you have collected. So that's all about the write-up. So this is one example. I'll go show you another example, but your write-up can be your own write-up, but it has to include the theme number, theme name, its definition, and some evidence. The way you write can differ from person to person. So this is example 2, results of the thematic analysis. Again, a brief description I have provided here. And then I have put the information into a table. So it has the theme number, name of the theme, definition, and the expert categories who supported certain themes in our study. Only 2 expert categories has supported. And for certain, only 1 expert category has supported. And for this theme, all 3 expert categories have supported. So like that, and some interview excerpts, some extracts from the interview transcripts as evidence. So this is another format, and you can have your own format. Right. So with that, it's all about the example. You have started with your interview transcript, and now you have ended up with the write-up. With that, let's move on to what are the useful softwares that you can use to do it. Can you see now, without using any other softwares, we've done our thematic analysis. But if you really need, you can get help of software applications for this. So there are paid softwares with free trials and educational discounts, as well as there are free softwares. I will just list down some. NVivo, MaxQDA, Total, Thematic are some of the paid software applications that you can use for your thematic analysis. And the free softwares, QDA Minor-Lite, Tagoti, RQDA are some of the free software. Now, other than these paid and free softwares that you use to totally do your thematic analysis, there are some other supportive softwares. So you might definitely be using these supportive softwares, though you are not using the totally thematic analysis softwares. So transcription softwares you can make use of. If you have recorded your interviews, you can use the software like Otter AI, Happy Scribe to transcribe your recorded interviews. And spreadsheet software such as Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, you can use it can be used for basic organization of codes and themes, or frequency counts, or creating simple charts about your data. You can use this spreadsheet softwares, and definitely you'll be using word processing software like Microsoft Word or Google Docs for writing up your findings and to write up your interview transcript. So these are some of the, though you're doing your thematic analysis manually, you can make use of these supportive softwares in your thematic analysis. So having said that, if you are going to make use of a software, you have to select the correct software for your analysis. So you need, what are the factors to consider to select the correct software for your analysis? You need to think of the size and the complexity of the data. The software that you are going to use should support to the size and the complexity of your data. And also it should be within your budget. It should be an affordable software. You should be able to afford to buy that software if you're going to buy, or otherwise you can rely on a free software. But in that case, you need to again check whether this is compatible with the size and the complexity of your data and the technical skills. If the software needs a lot of technical skills, and if you don't have much of the technical skills, you have to think about it, your capabilities and the requirement of the software and the specific features required. Now, for example, if you need automated transcription, your software should support this automated transcription. So you need, before you buy the software, you need to check whether this, not the common ones, whether this software supported for your unique needs, your unique requirements. And finally, ease of use and the learning curve. In your research, you have to do a lot of things and you don't have much time to learn a software starting from the beginning and do it. So it should be easy to use and the learning curve should be a shorter one. So with that, I can wind up my session. And if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer for those. Any questions, please?